Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Deborah Popa, Executive Director at KnowledgeFlow Cybersafety Foundation. We are so excited to have you with us today for ICTC's National CyberDay celebration of the year of quantum. Depending on where you're joining from, it might be morning, afternoon, or somewhere in between. So I guess that means we're kicking things off in a true state of quantum superposition. Today's event is a collaboration between KnowledgeFlow and ICTC, the Information and Communications Technology Council, and we're joined by two amazing guests, Ella Meyer from the University of British Columbia and Tim King from ICTC. Together, they'll guide us through an introduction to quantum computing and the Year of Quantum Game Jam, which is a creative and hands-on way to explore some of the most exciting ideas in science and technology. So let's take a quantum leap into the future of tech. Please join me in welcoming Ella Meyer and Tim King. Over to you guys.
Awesome. We're going to go through a little introduction to what the Game Jam is, what to expect with this project, and then a little bit of background on quantum and also game development for anyone who this is all brand new to. So first things first, I'm zooming in today from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam Nation. That's where UBC is specifically, but in Greater Vancouver, we also have the Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. It's important to remember we are guests on this land. There are generations of folks who have called this place home and are passing down their stories and culture. Important context, grounding context for wherever you are. And I do invite you to, if you haven't had a chance before, to explore the land that you are on and understand a bit more about the space you're in today. Next, as Deb mentioned, I'm Ella. I have an extremely long job title. I'm a quantum computing outreach coordinator at the University of British Columbia. UBC's gearing up engineering outreach program, and I use she, her pronouns. And joining me today is
Hi, my name's Tim King. I'm usually pretty good with my Indigenous recognition because I live on the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Six Nations in southwestern Ontario. But today I'm coming from you, and I'm going to have to read this from the Churea, Chana, and Guarani peoples, First Nations in Uruguay, which is, of course, a Spanish settled area. So there's a lot of mixing going on there. I'm really, really excited to be doing this. Ella and I have been building towards this for a long time. So it's a great opportunity to get into quantum and do something we both really wanted to do, which was really make quantum for everybody.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that awesome framing going into our game plan for the day. We're going to go a little bit over, so if all of this is brand new, we're going to start with, well, what's a game jam? Then we're going to go into what on earth is this quantum thing? From there, we're going to put them together and go, quantum games? What's that all about? And then we're going to round off at the end with some frequently asked questions, as well as point you in the direction of where all of the resources we've made that are going to help throughout this process. So step one, what on earth is a game jam? So a game jam is kind of like a hackathon. It is a short period of time during which the goal is to ideate, come up with, draft a plan for, and then create a video game. Sometimes hackathons or game jams are incredibly short. They can be a weekend or a week. But to take it easy on everybody for our first annual one, we've given you one full calendar month. And so the way that this game jam has come to be, Tim alluded to, it's been a long time coming. So in 2019, UBC started our quantum education program. At the time, it was called Diversifying Talent in Quantum Computing. In 2020, 2021, there was an early version of the arcade, but it was never fully finalized. And we've been talking a lot about how to use gamification to make quantum more interesting. Cut to 2022, where Tim cold calls me out of the blue to ask, what's this whole quantum thing? And why are you the only person I can find who does it? And so then shifting into 2023, we were able to do a quantum bootcamp together, and I got to introduce Tim and some other collaborators at UBC to a bunch of folks in the quantum space. From there, we applied for funding from the Unitary Foundation and we made a version of Quantum 2048 together. From there, we have shifted into the full National Cyber Day collaboration looking at this game jam. I did see like a notification from the chat, so maybe I'll take a quick pause here if that's a question or a comment or anything.
Sorry, that was me. I should have warned you, Ella. I was just putting in links. So I've linked to the game jam itself in itch.io and also to the arcade, the original Quantum Arcade.
Oh, awesome. Thanks so much. Yeah, I just can't see the actual chat content. So appreciate that. Thanks so much. Tim, do you have anything you'd like to add here, considering sort of it was you cold calling me out of the blue that sort of sparked a bunch of this?
And it was your early games on there. What I found, though, was that the early games sort of appear while they're being funded and then they disappear. And UBCs weren't the only ones, right? University of Waterloo had an early quantum game too, and it just vanished and ended up in a USB key in somebody's desk. So I thought, well, what a shame it is that we keep developing all these resources and then the internet being ephemeral, they all just disappear again. I should add, we also have Nurbe here. He's a game dev. And so when we're going through all of this, we have Ella with the quantum expertise, Nurbe with the game dev expertise, and I'm here too.
Great. Thank you for that. And my apologies, Nurbe. I should have shouted you out earlier.
I'm lurking in the chat.
Oh, good. Thank you. Yeah. So
sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Why is it called Quantum 2048? Is that the year 2048 we want to do something, or looking to the future?
So there's a game called 2048, which is a sort of classic almost like Tetris, but the goal is there are tiles with different values that you need to combine together to make the value 2048.
Okay.
And it is a game that, at least, when, I don't know how old you are, and I don't want this to come across as rude, but people in my generation played it a lot. It was a very, very popular like mobile phone game when I was in high school, and it's a really sort of familiar format or just like familiar and very easy to learn, because all you have to do is move tiles across a 4x4 board. And so it gave us just a really clear foundation for a place to start. Also, at the time when we first started developing 2048, it was actually another one of my staff. Her name's Harshini. She's brilliant. And she had done a lot of work on 2048 previously, because it's called, we're getting a little bit deep here, but I think it's great. It's called a serious game. And the idea of 2048 is that it can be used as like a self-regulation thing, because it's rhythmic and familiar. And so it has some uses in sort of like calming yourself down, like self-regulation. And so she was really interested in how a very simple game could have those effects. And so she built the original Quantum 2048 in Unity, and then Nurbe took over and added a bunch of the awesome features and sort of UI changes that we have seen since. So it's probably way more information than you asked for, but
well, I googled it just now and I found it, so I'll play with it later.
Awesome. So then the goal of this specific game jam was the idea of making games either about or using quantum mechanics. So it's all inspired by a student that Tim ran into in Ontario, who had been playing the games on our site and then pulled up Scratch and started making his own. And we were like, well, wouldn't this be an awesome opportunity to give to more kids across the country who were really interested in developing games on things even as accessible as Scratch, and then also introduce them to the world of quantum, the game development, and sort of dipping their toes into the water of what game jams and hackathons can be. So from there, probably a big question lurking around is like, what on earth is quantum? And so what I wanted to go through today is just sort of the four main pillars of quantum mechanics that might be useful, specifically in the idea of how to apply them in games. We'll talk about that a bit later. So the first thing one of the things people often talk about in quantum mechanics is entanglement. This is the idea that you can have two or more particles that are intrinsically connected in a way that is not affected by space. If you've ever heard of Einstein's spooky action at a distance, this is what that's referring to. Sometimes this can also be useful to think of as twins. It's the idea that there are two people who share an intrinsic connection that you cannot describe as individual parts of a system without considering the other. The next is superposition. So it is a particle being, I said neither, but it should be in either of its possible measurable states. Being neither of its possible measurable states, but instead being a combination of those states. Common example here is if you flip a coin and the coin is in the air, which side is showing? And the answers people usually give is, well, neither, but it could be both. It depends where it is. And so superposition is the idea that there is a particle in a state which we have to describe in probabilities. We have to talk about, well, there's a chance it's this and there's a chance it's this. And not until things are measured are we able to make, definitive statements about how it's behaving. Speaking of, probabilistic measurement is a really interesting concept. Because for all of us and all of our calculators and things that we're used to, if you do the same equation multiple times, you should get the same answer. This is one of the things that we love so much about modern calculators. 2 + 2 is always 4. However, when you're dealing with things that exist in probabilities of states, making multiple measurements of the same problem with the same inputs is not going to always give you the same answer. Because even with the same initial states, even if there's always 50-50, you have heads or tails, the outcomes may change depending on just measurement to measurement. Lastly, quantum tunneling. So particles may pass through an energy barrier, would not be able to go over classically. This is probably the quantum mechanic feature that has the most obvious visual comparison. For instance, if one was trying to go over a mountain, it would take a certain amount of energy. But if you had the chance of phasing clean through it and ending up on the other side, well, it would eliminate a lot of good hiking trails, but also it would be something that tends not to happen classically. So it's a really interesting, specific to very small particle quantum behavior. Cool. Is there any... Was the chat just you, Deb? Awesome. Okay. So from there, I want to shift into the idea of, well, how on earth do we make games quantum? So thinking about core game mechanics in simple games, I wanted to think about 3 sort of main categories and then something else, because I can't do a catch-all for everything that we could possibly have. But thinking about core game mechanics, it's like, okay, let's look at movement, object interaction, and player choice. Ways we can drive different things happening in our games. So movement, either how do objects or characters move through an environment? Object interaction, i.e., how do objects interact with each other? Or do characters need to collect, move, or remove objects? And lastly, player choice. Are there decisions made by the player, such as choosing a dialogue option, that will affect the next part of your game? There's also the something else, lest I missed anything. And so let's look a little bit about how we can apply our game mechanics to sort of different types of, or apply our quantum mechanics to different types of game mechanics. So for instance, these are all brainstorms to get people going. For instance, if you started with the idea of quantum tunneling and you want to apply, you have a very movement heavy game, like a platformer, for instance. You might have a thing where you want to explore, can your character tunnel through barriers purposefully? Walls, doors, floors, things like that. And does some parts of your environment have higher tunneling probabilities than others? Like, for instance, could you snakes and ladders style, fall through the floor without meaning to, or if, you know, the timing's just right, you can get through a barrier. Could this be a way that you want to apply quantum tunneling to the movement aspects of the game? In terms of objects, you might have things like objects sometimes collide with each other and sometimes tunnel through each other. This is one that we used in our own version of Quantum 2048, where depending on the values of different tiles, we gave them the ability to potentially tunnel through one another and join. Hence, point 2, can you use tunneling to combine objects? Or can you, on the other side, if this is something you're trying to prevent in your game, well, how would you build barriers to try to prevent tunneling? Is this a sort of environmental aspect you could add? And then lastly, if you're looking at player choice, if your game has something like dialogue, is there a possibility that the same dialogue choice has multiple different outcomes? And how does that affect different ideas? Or could you have character decisions that result in tunneling the environment or with objects? Is there a decision that you made that enables this feature? So different ways we can explore tunneling there.
Can I just jump in for a sec?
Of course you can.
And give you a break and you can have a drink. If you consider classic video games, pretty much any video game, they're all very deterministic. If you're playing Pac-Man and the ghost gets you, you're dead. If you're playing asteroids and you hit the asteroid, you blow up. Things are very cause and effect, but this gives you an opportunity to play with that. And what University of Waterloo did and what we did with Quantum 2048 on the Quantum Arcade now is take existing games and then show you how they work through a quantum lens. So rather that you don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel from scratch here, you can go to classic game mechanics, but then put a quantum twist on them. So I just listening to this, I was thinking, wow, wouldn't it have been nice to have a quantum button when you were playing asteroids? So when you realized an asteroid was about to get you, you could, you know, superposition yourself elsewhere or tunnel through it. It gives you another dimension of gameplay. So, and if you work with a familiar game, the familiarization with quantum is really good because people already understand the first game. So, and you can go on the arcade right now and play these games and see that. So, and I think in all cases, the games let you play them classically and then let you play them quantum, which is an interesting dynamic too.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for adding that. Yeah, definitely helpful to take a useful framework and then consider sort of, if you break down the core mechanics of what those games are, of asteroids, of Frogger, of Pac-Man, you know, Pac-Man is movement with object interaction. And how do you look at applying those quantum mechanics to those? From there, going from tunneling to superposition, some ideas for superposition with movement. It could be, if you're starting a new level, is there a probability you start your level in a bunch of different locations? This could also be in one of the games we have on the site right now. We have a little dungeon crawler, and one of the ways we use superpositions and movement is that your character can split in two, and you can move two different parts of the same character. For objects, you can think about how objects could maybe be in multiple states. In the same game, we have it where you're trying to collect keys, but the keys are in superposition. So if you try to grab the key, you could, or you may or may not grab it, depending on the superposition of that key at the time. Or, yeah, can interacting with different objects change the state of your own character? If you're in superposition and you go through something, does that measure you and you're definitively there now? And then last, thinking about player choice, sort of more the like digital novella style games. Are there outcomes that depend on the odds of a character choosing something, or by interacting with your world, can you change it? Can you, you know, go into something where a whole bunch of things are in superposition, and by measuring it, you shape the space that you're in? These could all be really cool ideas for integrating superposition. From there, we have entanglement. So things like, yeah, can you move and have another copy of the same you also move? Could you have spaces that you move through be entangled with another part of the environment? are two of your levels, for instance, potentially actually shadows of each other. And by solving the first one, you change how things are affected on the next level you go into. For objects, you could have, interacting with an object somewhere affect a pair somewhere else, or could you entangle two together to solve a problem? If that second point sounds familiar, this is kind of the whole idea behind the wildly popular game Portal, is the idea of connecting two parts of physical space that aren't usually connected together. Using something like asteroids for an example, if some of your asteroids were entangled, if you explode one of them, does a second one explode elsewhere in the asteroid field? Something to consider. And then for player choice, could there be really cool ways that you connect two parts of a story together in very unexpected ways? Again, wanting to leave open to folks who maybe are really on the artistic side, but aren't super confident in their gameplay mechanics. Digital novellas are a really cool way to explore a bunch of ideas and not have to rely too heavily on your coding skills.
We're really looking for interactive piece here, right? Like, as long as it's interactive, it doesn't need to be a classic arcade game or anything.
Yeah.
If it's interactive in any way, so it could be an interactive story, and choose your own adventure. I think there's an inherent quantum nature to that, so you could totally come at it that way as well. Yeah, it's a good idea.
A quantum choose your own adventure would be so much fun, because I think, and because of quantum mechanics and probabilistic measurement that we're about to get into, even making the same decisions throughout the game might give you a different ending to your story. And I think that's really, honestly, quite beautiful and quite powerful. So yeah, thinking about probabilistic measurement is with movement. Okay, so do your movement keys always result in the same actions? Like how your actual inputs go? Does this always work the same way? Or can you also combine probabilistic measurement with another effect to have new movement possibilities? There's a chance when you go to double jump, you actually portal off to somewhere. There's a chance when you do this happens. It might be slightly more difficult for your characters, but could also be a really interesting insight into how things work at a quantum level. For objects, are two things definitively going to react a certain way together, or are there multiple different outcomes with how different things interact? In University of Waterloo's quantum cats game, which we have up there, which is similar to Angry Birds in terms of framework, they have different cats with different states, and those will or won't hit different objects in the system depending on what else is going on. Also, thinking that, and everyone's favorite parts of games, loot boxes. If there's a closed box or space, what inside that can change before you open it and reveal what's there. And then going into the sort of choose your own adventure, when replaying in game, do the same choices always have the same outcomes? Are choices guaranteed, or are you given odds of what would like to happen? So if you say, if you want to go to, if you want to go to page 34, go here or here, and there's a possibility you go where you want to, but not necessarily. Is there an inherent sense of randomness in how you actually explore the story?
It's a good educational piece in there as well, because we tend to teach a lot of certainty in school. And that opportunity, the first time I put code through a quantum computer and it didn't give me an answer, it gave me a probability outcome. And I had to think for a minute. I'm like, ooh, that's interesting. I expected, 2 + 2 to always equal 4, and it doesn't work that way. But generally, things don't work that way. We force things into deterministic outcomes because that helps us deal with them quickly. But that's really not how nature works. So this is a great opportunity to explore that. And like Ella said, there's a lot of freedom in it. It's quite empowering if you think about it.
Absolutely. Thanks for adding that. So with that, I want to shift into some of our FAQs. I know we're running right near end of time here. So we're going to do a really quick who, what, when, where, why, how. So who, any grade 6 to 12 students in Canada with a trusted adult to mentor. This can be a teacher or parent. Anyone who's over the age of 18 who can be the accountable member for this team is a trusted adult. There are 3 divisions by grade. So Div 1, 2, 3, which is grade 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10 to 12 respectively. Divisions are determined by the oldest team member. So if you have 3 grade 9s and 2 grade 10s, you are in Division 3. This is so that we don't have a whole bunch of grade 6, 7s who decided that their grade 12 brother is going to be on the team and absolutely smoke their classmates. That is not fair. We're playing by nice, fair rules. What you are submitting is a video game that incorporates quantum mechanics using Scratch, Unity, anything you want to. Suggestions, some things we just went through here. This is a screenshot of our version of 2048 that gives a little brief on our tunneling merge and how that worked. This is available on the Quantum Arcade website if people want examples on how to get in there, but truly this whole project is a choose your own adventure, quite metally. So get creative, explore, have fun. When it is open from yesterday, and it will be open until November 20th, 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It is the latest time zone in Canada I could pick. Late submissions are not accepted. There's also going to be another stream to answer more questions on the 13th. So if you're going through the process and you are running into different errors, or you want to talk about whatever's going on, you have questions for the game jam organizers, there will be a second stream. We have a where why. So the game jam is hosted on itch.io. It's a link to the CyberDay website. There is also a registration link through there that should take you to a Qualtrics form. Please sign up for the game jam, but also sign up for the through the survey so that we can make sure we know who's on what team, who's linked to what. There is really, really, really good documentation from Itch on exactly how to build your game and how to submit it. It's all self-contained to their site. I highly recommend looking at those resources. Why games? Games are really fun. I love playing games. I think that they're familiar. They have fairly straightforward mechanics, and they are open up to a world of possibilities. It's very exciting. Important notes. Your game should meet the standard of E for everybody. If you don't know what that means, this is very Googleable as to what game standards different levels permit. There's also an FAQ and a whole bunch of finalized information all available on the CyberDay site that tells you exactly what it is. All content in your game should be homemade or open source. Please don't plagiarize things. Please avoid using AI for visuals if you can. I think it's cooler if you make it yourself. There is notes about permitted uses of AI in the project. Again, that is in the finalized information and FAQs. And if you have any questions, please refer to the supporting documentation and then reach out to the organizing teams. We think we've tried to cover most of our bases across there, but still, I'm sure we've missed something. And that's it. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand, use the chat. Really excited to see what everybody makes.
Yeah, I would just add that when I'm doing game dev with students, they tend to overscope things and then get into this perfectionist mindset. When November is rolling around and you're getting towards the end here, submit what you've got. Even if you've only gotten like the first piece of functionality working or whatever else, you can always explain to us the rest of the scope. But I think one of the things, I haven't talked to this about Ella, but I think the idea here is to engage students with quantum and through a medium they're really comfortable with, game development, that interactivity. So if you handed us in a game and it looked like it was coming along really well, you could very well win. And then if you wanted to update it a bit later, I'm sure we would be more than happy to accept the update and have your finalized version. So don't panic about the due dates, but don't not hand something in because it's not this epic game that you were scoping out at the beginning.
Yes, we are not expecting anyone to produce Skyrim in a month. But yes, do get a foot in the door if you have something you're really stoked on. Go ahead, Melissa.
Yes, I was wondering, how do you deal with copyrights from game that already exist that you quantumize that game? Do you have any issues with that?
I mean, luckily a lot of like older arcade style games are sort of in the public domain or very open source at this point. Like the mechanics of Pac-Man
Yeah.
are fair game, as far as I know. So I think a lot of it, as long as like the kids are writing their own thing, they're making their own version, it's all that's all pretty fair as far as I know. Yeah, as long as people aren't pulling stuff directly. Nirpay, you might know a bit more about this because
Yeah,
you're more in the
I
games.
I would say in terms of copyright, in terms of game mechanics, there's really probably no real concerns, because those are things that are very sort of gray area legally, and I mean, no one really has pursued that ever. The thing that is that is big about copyright is art. So, not having any sort of direct visuals from, let's say, for example, Pokemon or something like that, but like derivations of that art can work if they're like different enough. So like if you're making Pikachu, I'm pretty sure you won't be able to make a yellow thing with a lightning tail,
Mhm.
but as long as it's like a sort of different shade of yellow thing with not a lightning tail, should be fine. So main thing with copyright is like art, but
Yeah.
most other things are fair. Obviously, like you taking sort of entire sort of lines of dialogue from games, obviously not, gonna work, but mostly should be okay.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
'Cause I was
not-for-profit
wondering,
education piece too is like gives us a
Yeah,
lot more
we're
latitude. It's not-for-profit, it's education. We
yeah,
tend to have a lot more scope, so.
no, that's weird. I was wondering because 2048 is, I think, not an that old game, so.
no, but it's open.
2048 is open source.
It's
Oh,
open
okay.
source.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was
So
one of the
alright then.
reasons. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's things that are open source are inherently fair game. And it's one of the reasons we are also in terms of students using AI, we're really discouraging them from trying to use AI visuals just because there's no way to guarantee the thing that they have produced hasn't been trained on copyrighted materials. And so we're just saying, call your friend in arts class, try to make your own thing there just so that we're above board as much as possible.
Yeah.
And
Thank
the
you.
AI could help with that. I mean, if you did your own drawing and then had the AI help you with it, that's a good use of amplifying your own ideas. But yeah, you don't
Although
want to
I
take
still
all of it.
won't trust that because most of those data sets are trained on copyrighted
Yeah, that's true.
information,
Yeah.
and the way that the sort of AI companies work right now is nobody's willing to sue them because they make so much money. So, but like they will be willing to sue us, for example. So it's
Yeah.
like different sort of
Yeah.
scale.
Yeah, we have some notes on the site of like if folks are looking for, like more sort of ideas, foundational things, there are ways that like if they want to use AI that they can. But in terms of things that end up very like public facing, it's a lot better if they do their best there on their own. Yeah.
Depends on the
Cool.
AI you use too. I mean, if you're using
True.
Midjourney with guardrails off, you can do very specific coding that gives you very unique outcomes. But if you're just using the same one everybody's jumping online and using simply, then that's where you'll run into
Yes.
problem.
If you ask ChatGPT to make you a Pikachu that doesn't quite look like a Pikachu, I think we are still going to end up in trouble. So in order
That's a
to
bad prompt.
yes, to keep the heat off of me personally, I would appreciate if folks if shooting for originality as much as possible there. Yeah. Yeah, Mahesh.
3 questions. Number 1, the slides which you showed about entanglement, superposition, and stuff. Will those slides be available to us to show our students?
Yes, I can answer that one.
Okay.
Yes, because this whole call is going to be recorded.
Yeah.
And the other thing is if you go to National Cyber Day, then the additional material is also there. So Ella's got a whole bunch of other slides talking even more in depth about quantum. And then the slides particular to game dev are also there. So there's
okay.
tons of resources there specific to quantum. And then also, like I said, quantum mixed with game dev.
Yeah, then
Yeah.
you probably answered my next question, because my students haven't learned, at least to the best of my knowledge, quantum in any subject or anything. So if there's some introductory stuff, I can teach them first so they become more familiar with it. So it's there
Not
on the
only,
website.
yeah, on nationalcyberday.ca. So you'll have
Okay.
to sign up because,
Yeah.
right, you know this about our stuff. So just sign up and then you'll get the code by email to go in. And not only are those slideshows there, but we've created age-specific slideshows. So we even have
Oh.
some like for really little kids, just to start talking about some of these concepts, and then middle schoolers and then high schoolers. So
Oh,
there's
okay.
a ton of stuff there. I think, I
Yeah.
hope you'll be very
Yeah.
with what you see there.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Then
So
my
just
third,
go ahead, and then I'll answer after. Go ahead.
no, you finish first if you're related to this.
Oh.
My third question is a different
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, so there's 5 lessons available, all of which have accompanying teaching scripts with additional notes and ways that you can make them more suitable for older or younger audiences. As Sheena said, there's Introduction to Quantum, Introduction to Game Jam, Quantum Mechanics is Game Mechanics, and then there's 2 mini lessons, one on quality assurance and one on debugging. So there's, and the first 3, so Quantum Mechanics, Game Development, and Quantum Mechanics as Game Development, those are all designed to be like 1 hour full class lessons. And then, yeah, and there's a whole accompanying teaching script with it. So you can throw it in the microwave for 55 seconds and it's ready to go.
Yeah, see, that's one of the reasons I love these things, because just to make the lesson plan and think of it would take hours or days. But you already have it ready. I can modify it if I need to, but that's fine.
Don't worry.
So
I did the
thank you for
hours and
that.
days. You're good. My
Okay,
gift
then
to you.
Thank you. So my third question, I know you said about AI. So they can't use AI to write the code, but suppose they get stuck in something. Can they put that code they get stuck into AI and say, I'm stuck here. How can I modify it?
So yeah, so that would be fine.
Okay.
The
Mhm.
main, like, okay, using AI generated code is not a like we won't get into any like legal trouble or
Yeah.
anything if we do that. We're just encouraging the students to learn. Like if this is their first time developing games or something, then I would suggest not generating the code. But if it's to look up something, like for example, it's a term you don't understand or some sort of, part of the language you don't understand, then yeah, that's of course, that's totally up to your discretion.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you to Ella, Nirbe, and Tim for that fantastic presentation. If anyone has questions for the organizers after this session, just click on the question submission button, which is in Mission Quantum on nationalcyberday.ca. Thanks so much for joining us.